Ricky. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah,
Thanks
so
for
exciting.
coming.
So exciting.
So exciting.
Oh, calm down. You're too excited. We just started. We haven't gotten to the good stuff yet. Can you introduce yourself to all of our friends who, for whatever reason, don't know who you are?
Yeah,
Rude.
it's probably a very good chance that they have no idea who I am. I am Ricky Glore. I am a stand-up comedian, writer, and director, actor, producer, sometimes special effects if something needs to be held or done, boom mic, jib holder.
Jack of all trades, basically.
You wear many hats.
Wear many hats, and I am the writer, co-director, executive producer, actor in the upcoming indie horror film All Your Friends Are Dead.
That sounds interesting. Like
And very morbid, yeah.
Kind of like a one-man show, basically, right?
It's funny, like, doing stand-up definitely is a one-man show, and when people are like, oh, you do comedy, and now you're doing horror, there seems to be a trend of that as of late. Do you like doing stand-up, blah, 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 and I'm like, well, you know what, stand-up actually isn't my favorite creative outlet. I love the ensemble. Like, I love doing sketch. I love making movies because everyone who's there kind of has an opinion, and it's not necessarily always valid, but I always like to open it up to, hey, everyone, we're doing this thing. We've written this thing. You have ideas. You feel a certain way. If you ever have an idea, there's a lot of downtime when you're making a movie. Pull me aside and pitch it to me, and I'll take it with a grain of salt. Maybe it won't connect in any way to me at that moment, but maybe I'll sit on it for a while and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Or maybe it will spark something else. So I love the collaborative effort of anything that involves a crew or actors or whatever.
Feels like you'd be more limitless too when you're creating a movie or something like that, opposed to just doing some comedy in front of a group of people.
Exactly.
And I get, like, there's those auteurs that have that singular vision that it's like, I have to execute this, and you have to trust me because there are moments like that too, even when you're collaborating, where you're just like, you have to trust what I've done, and you have to trust where I'm going with this, or not. Like, you have to just trust me because I know I can see the movie, or I can see the move or the shot or whatever in this thing. But that's also what's fun about collaborating, is that trust. And I think that comes from my improv background.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm the best person of, like, I could never do stand-up comedy. Ever. Ever.
No. I think I'm the only person who finds myself funny anyway. So
I find you funny.
That's not true. I have watched your watch-along of the movie Altitude and was dying laughing. It wasn't even Mystery Science Theater 3000. It was, do you remember that Kristen Wiig character? It was Aunt something, and she was on Weekend Update, and she used to review movies, and she's like, and I give it to what? Like, that's what it was like watching the two of you. I was like, oh, you are gems. You are an amazing, like, comedic duo.
Yeah, we have our moments.
Thanks.
I don't know if I could stand in front of a crowd and entertain people. Like,
each other, I think.
Between the two of us, we're idiots. So
you should take it on the road. You guys should get some movies or short films or whatever, or even commercials. I think you guys could probably gab about, and, like, have an audience just watch you all react to those things. I'd pay money.
This one right here, she's out of her freaking mind. She scares the shit out of me because she jumps and, like,
very reactive in movies. Yeah,
I can't.
I'm really glad we invited you on our show to talk about us more. So, I mean,
you're like,
what else do you want to know about us?
Please.
What else you got? Come on.
Tell us how great we are. Oh my gosh.
So do you feel like you got into comedy before horror, or at the same time, or one led into the other?
I think one kind of led into the other.
Okay.
I actually do not think they're that different from one another. I think they both elicit a visceral reaction, and when they're done very well, and I think actually you will find varying levels of both in both genres. Like, the best horror has levity and has some great comedy, because then it will turn on a dime and then just get horrific.
Sure.
And that's really cool for an audience to be laughing and then all of a sudden being like, oh no, 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 you caught me off guard. I was happy, I was good.
Yeah.
But for me, it came to I saw everything at way too young of an age. And as far as movies, sorry, not like in life. Like I saw a man die in front of me at the age of 2, and I was
a lot
like,
of trauma.
yeah,
It's a lot of baggage.
yeah. But like my dad, I remember seeing A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, sitting at the foot of my parents' bed. I think they thought I was asleep when I was like 3 years old. And
Wow.
I have like loose memories of seeing it for the first time. And so my dad, who is a big cinephile, and because I was ADHD and super rambunctious as a child and would not go to sleep at night, he would stay up with me, and selfishly, but also kind of as a rite of passage, started imparting on me the things that he grew up and loved. So we would watch comedies, old sitcoms he would watch growing up, and then old comedic movies like the Martin and Lewis movies, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby road pictures, and then like Abbott and Costello. And then Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein,
Okay.
which has Bela Lugosi, Glenn Strange. It has all the Universal, well, not all of them, but a lot of the Universal monsters in it.
Sure.
And what's interesting about that movie is Abbott and Costello are very funny in it, but the monsters are just as horrific as they are in their Universal monster movies.
That's
And
cool.
so when my dad saw that I was okay with that, he's like, and this is like when I'm 4. He's like, okay.
Grooming you into the whole scary movie thing.
Exactly. Well, because he wants, if he's gonna have to stay up with me, he wants a buddy that can he wants a wingman that can keep up with him and his obsession of all things movie. And so then he's like, oh, you're cool with that. Let's watch the Universal monster movies. And so we watched all of them. I mean, and they run deep if you haven't. There's 2 waves of the Universal monster movies. One pre-World War II and then post-World War II. So they're very interesting to watch the changes in that. And then after we got through those, now I'm like 5, 6 years old. Really
easing
old.
into it, yeah.
I've lived a life. I'm smoking like unfiltered cigarettes and like
chain smoking. Yep, basically an alcoholic already.
Yeah. Like, man, that Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, they really get it. He then transitioned. He's like, okay, now let's dial it up a notch. Let's do the Hammer horror movies, which were a lot of the Universal monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, The Mummy, redone by this British film company called Hammer. So that's where you see Christopher Lee playing Dracula. That's where you see Peter Cushing playing Van Helsing, and Dr. Frankenstein. David Prowse, who was Darth Vader, played Frankenstein in 1 or 2 movies. And those have more gore, have more violence, and a lot more cleavage. Like 100% more cleavage. Like,
you mean like white shirts?
You need a good balance of
with
both.
a rain. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it's all because they're set in like Victorian settings, so it's like
everything's all pushed up
and bustiers. Yes.
Right.
And so like that, I think was probably one of my first like sexual awakenings as a child, being like, oh, I'm interested in these a little bit more than I was those black and white movies where if they showed an ankle, it was scandalous. But so then now I'm like 6, 7 years old, and now my dad's like, well, you've seen those. Let's just keep the crazy train going.
Oh my God.
Here's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Here's Phantasm.
That's a huge leap.
Here's The Exorcist. Well, but like, and then like peppered in there is like Psycho.
Okay.
And like Peeping Tom, which was released the same year as Psycho. A bunch of 60s stuff. We're watching The Twilight Zone. We're watching the Outer Limits shows. And so then by like the age 8, I had seen all the Nightmare on Elm Streets. By age 8, I was meeting Angus Grimm, who played the tall man in Phantasm, at a movie convention and being terrified.
Wow.
And so, but also in there, you have the same trajectory in comedy. So like I was telling you, starting off with those old comedy movies, then it goes to the Marx Brothers and Three Stooges, and then it's going into Saturday Night Live of the 70s, and then it's me watching the SNL reruns from the 80s, where I fall in love with the cast from, probably my favorite cast is like 87 to 90, where it was Phil Hartman, Mike Myers, Kevin Nealon.
Sure.
And then not part of that cast, but I also fell in love with, because it was the cast that my brother was watching, was Will Ferrell and R.I.P. Norm Macdonald, who I fell in love with. And
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't? Who doesn't love him?
well, I mean, just within this past week after him passing away, it was.
Well, you had kind of a relationship with him, right?
I did. I was super fortunate to have correspondences with him and meet him.
That's awesome.
And so, it's there's a weird thing of the internet anyway, of glad standing, and when a celebrity dies, there's this importance that is kind of released by people, and it's like, oh, are you saying this to get likes right now and to get on this train of like this topic? If you put, say, Norm Macdonald in your tweet or whatever, you're going to get recognition to your page because it's a trending topic. I don't know. I know that's morbid to think about, but like, I'm someone who doesn't have a super big ego, even though I said all those hats that I wear. Even writing my thing, I did it because it was cathartic for me, because I was weirdly sad. I was just like, oh, I every now and then would send a message over to Norm about something, about comedy, or the movie The Hustler with Paul Newman, which is about shooting pool. And he would reply back like, oh, here's some other movies that I love about poker or whatever. And we just shoot the shit.
That's a cool relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't, I don't know if you read the things, but like giving me, a young-ish comedian, just like life points, like being like, hey, really treasure these days when they're hard, when you're on the road and you're away from family. They'll be the best ones in your comedy life. They'll be the ones you treasure forever. And just no longer having that person to kind of like, someone that you respect and think is a giant in the world of comedy.
Exactly.
And the sad part is too, is I don't think he ever, because he didn't have a huge ego, ever allowed himself to realize how influential he was on so many.
And that just makes a great person. I mean, that's just says who he is, from the inside. So
you always hope that like, if when they get announced that they died, that they really didn't die and they can live one more day just to see all the outpouring of love that happens after everyone finds out. But
doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Sorry to bring it down.
Wow.
Well, now everyone's sad.
Wow. Way to go.
Well, I'll tell, last night I had a show in very southern Kentucky, and I finished my set by telling a few of my favorite Norm Macdonald jokes. And I knew it before I told him, because I can do a Norm Macdonald impression. I didn't do them in his voice. I just read them. But I also then realized afterwards, these really kind of only work the best if it's him doing it.
Sure. It's all in his delivery. His delivery is what makes it 100%.
I'll say one of my favorites, and it was a Weekend Update. Well, two favorites. One was a very young Norm Macdonald when he was on like Star Search. He's like, has anyone ever given you a lottery ticket as a gift? He's like, what a crappy gift. It's like, hey, here's a lottery ticket as a gift. I hope you like nothing. He's like, I hope you enjoy throwing away that nothing later. Because not only did I get you something, I got you something that you now have to find a way to get rid of.
This is pretty good.
And the other one, Weekend Update, was a list of the best and worst places to visit this summer for vacation has been released. Number 1, oddly on the list, Bangor, Maine. Number 2, as the worst, Neverland Ranch. Of course, in the height of Michael Jackson controversy.
Of course.
I mean, I think we could all appreciate that one, for sure.
My husband's obsessed with the moth joke that he told on Conan.
Oh, so good.
Any opportunity, it's so long too. I keep telling him not to tell Courtney. He'll be like, Courtney, have you heard the moth joke? And I'm like, no, we don't have time for it. We don't have time.
There's a great clip where he did a book tour in 2018 for his fictional autobiography.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want one of those.
That's fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I mean, Norm is such a fan and a student of comedy. I think a little bit of that is a tipping of his hat to. They say Charlie Chaplin, who I'm a big fan of Charlie Chaplin. They say his autobiography is about like 85% fabricated.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. Okay.
And so I think Norm kind of took a cue and was
Right.
like,
I can do better. Yeah.
my life's not interesting. I'll just make up a lot of shit.
You're like, here, hold my beer.
But at this book release, book reading thing, he read this very beautiful passage that was very sincere. But then the moderator also asked him about the moth joke, and he said how the moth joke came about was it was a joke Colin Quinn had told him.
Okay.
Which was just a very quick, very like 101 jokes to tell to kids or whatever kind of joke. Very clean, very short joke. He was on Conan doing panel, and after his panel going into commercial, Conan said, "All right, we're going to commercial, and we'll be right back with more Norm Macdonald." Norm was unaware that he was staying for more time, so he didn't prepare anything else. And so during commercial break, he's like, "Hey, Conan, how long do you want me for the next segment?" He's like, and he's thinking, he's like, I got this in his mind. He's like, I got this moth joke, but it's only like 27 seconds long. So if it's 27 seconds, we're great. And Conan's like, I don't know, 7 or 10 minutes. And he's like, 7 or 10 minutes. So that's why he elongated it to make
so much
an anti joke, because it's a dumb premise and it's a dumb punchline.
100%.
But the
I
idea
think you said that too. Yeah.
Because when you get to the end, you're almost like, oh, fucking course. Like, okay.
Because it's the longevity.
Yeah.
Again, it's that Andy Kaufman kind of, and I'm not always for anti-comedy because I think like any form of comedy, you have to be very good at it and trained and skilled to pull it off. It's like people when they're like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I danced badly on stage? And it's like, no, you know what would be funny and shock the shit out of me in the audience is if you came out and you did this really well-pointed choreographed dance for like 3 minutes.
Right.
Like that would be hilarious because it would be unexpected. And so like that joke, Norm is the master of pauses and ellipses and weird inflections. So yeah, the moth joke is if anybody hasn't, just go on YouTube and spend like an hour just watching clips of him.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like he was one of your kind of comedy icons, or were there anybody else who inspired you into getting into comedy also?
Phil Hartman from SNL was a big inspiration because weirdly I have the same kind of pedigree as a lot of those guys did. Like they grew up watching the same stuff that my dad showed me because my dad was a similar age to them. But so like I'm a man out of time generationally in a couple areas. Like my favorite music group of all time is the Monkees.
Okay.
And I love the television show The Monkees. Like
I
like
never guessed the Monkees. That's fantastic though. I love it.
Because of this.
It's probably that.
Okay, so my wife gave me my wife doesn't give me ultimatums except for the other night before we were going to bed, and she's like, hey, you know how we have family photos November 13th? And I was like, yes. And she's like, you need to be done with the movie by November 13th because you have to get this cut in your hair cut because it's usually not this long and gross, but because the character I'm playing this is part of the and so we have a few more days of shooting, but we're still not aware of like pickup shots or reshoots that we would need. We hopefully won't need a ton. But I text my my co-director and other executive producer Nick Hyance, and I was just like, hey man, my wife's not going to let me look like Santa in our family photos this year. I even suggested I could maybe be like Sasquatch in the background, like. But like,
she didn't go for that.
She didn't go for it.
No,
That's surprising.
Said,
I know. That could be fun.
She's like, you either get it cut or it's only a picture with me and Anna, my daughter, and people are going to be like, "Oh, did Ricky die? Is he?" Oh,
she's like, I'm not going to correct them either.
No, we'll Photoshop you in after you have.
He said, use me from last year. Just cut me out.
There you go. I was actually going to ask you if you were in your movie because I was creeping through your Instagram for the movie, and I thought I saw you in a couple of pictures with the beard and everything. So I guess you are in it.
To give you a little background, and it's again, I know I said before I don't have ego, but the big impetus for this movie to make a feature film, as it is our first, is Nick Hines and I went to high school together, and we bonded over film, indie film in particular. Our love of like Robert Rodriguez, which he loved the book Rebel Without a Crew, that basically is a manual to how to make a low budget movie. Because he made, I think, El Mariachi for like $7,000. But then he details, it's bananas, but especially what's in that movie. He details how to use and ask for favors. Use things that are around you, develop a story that has emotional resonance and personal resonance, and use the things that you have for production value to help tell your story. Don't write a story necessarily around all these things. Come at it with a personal angle. And Kevin Smith, who I loved and was introduced by my brother, he came home for a summer break from college, and he had 2 VHS tapes. He had Chasing Amy and Dogma. And he was like, I think you're going to love Dogma. I think in a couple years you might like Chasing Amy. And I watched them both. And weirdly, I of course love Dogma, but I weirdly was like, oh, Chasing Amy is kind of this beautiful movie. Now, I understand the problematic nature, especially after Gigli, of having Ben Affleck turn a gay girl straight. That's not necessarily what the story of Chasing Amy is about, but I could see seeing that and then feeling that way. But so Nick Hines and I were making short films. We're doing sketch comedy. We did a cable access sketch comedy show right out of high school that we did, and we've just continued to do things together in that world. And we were talking one day, and we're like, all right, we're both 35 years old, which is technically middle age. And I mean, it is.
Still have 5 years, right? Still 5 years.
I mean, but like, is the back 10 of that any good living? Like from 70 to 80, I feel like that's just avoiding dying.
Yeah.
It's just like every morning waking up, like, hey, Grim Reaper? No.
Get away!
And just saying, and just saying things like, my shoulders are cold. Just weird things like that. So we were both saying like, well, if 15 years ago when we were 20, 15 years from 20 to 35 seems like an eternity when you're 20. 15 years from 35 to 50, weirdly, in our perspective, seems like it's right around the corner.
Sure.
So we were like, okay, 15 years from now, if we looked back and we just kept on doing what we're doing, would we have any regrets? And we're like, no, neither one of us fall to the societal pressures of like, you should have this, and this checklist of a certain age. But I was like, you know what I would regret is if we never attempted to make a feature-length movie and put our money where our mouth is. We make plenty of excuses of like, we don't have the budget, we don't have this, or whatever. It's like, we have the equipment, we have me. And so like, if we needed a dedicated actor, we write it and we put it together in a way where we film a bulk of the most scenes that have the biggest amount of cast in like 2 or 3 days, almost do it like a 48-hour film festival. And then we have all this other stuff that maybe only requires me and you, or to Nick, who's the DP as well, me, you, and one other actor, me, you, and one location, you know. And so then all we have to be responsible for is we need one lead actor that is definitely going to show up and know everything, and it's going to be easier to make. We're doing that out of necessity for this movie, and as it turned out, when we started developing the story, the movie became about kind of being 35 and looking back. The byline is what happens when the teen slasher movie grows up. So it's no longer these 20-somethings or teenagers who have zero inhibitions and fears and worries. They're just being like, oh, I hope I get laid. Like, that's basically. Right, and then when the killer pops up, it's like, no, don't kill me before I get laid. Like, that's the fear of those movies. And so I was like, how interesting would it be if the Breakfast Club, if like an eclectic group of friends who then became estranged. So the Breakfast Club turns into the Big Chill and goes camping in a Friday the 13th movie. And I was like, okay, we can maybe use if I'm the lead, maybe we can use my story, which was I played sports my whole life and then got hurt junior year and had to get 2 knee surgeries and was in a wheelchair for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
And the doctor said, if you don't ever want to have your leg go paralyzed, you cannot do contact sports. You cannot run. And so I was like, okay. Yeah. And so that's a big reason of the thing we were talking about before the podcast. I'm getting the gastric sleeve is because it's hard for me I've gained a lot of weight and it's hard for me to go back from that. But I was like, okay, what if this lead character, instead of me who got hurt junior year and still had some high school left, where I was doing a chorus class and I was always interested in theater and film and stuff, as we've talked about, but I never had time for it. And so like I would film sketches with my friends and whatnot, but I couldn't ever like audition for plays because it would overlap with a sport. After I got hurt, I auditioned for the next play I could, got it, and then was in everything my senior year, and then went to college for theater. Yeah. We were like, okay, what if Bizarro Ricky had this group of like the Breakfast Club, and because we talked about that our senior year, one thing we really liked was we weren't weirdly like classist, and like we didn't bully the younger classmen. We were, and like band kids hung out with the jocks, hung out with the we were not separatist, which I don't feel like is always
not super
existent.
common.
No. Yeah. And so we marveled at that, and we're like, okay, so what if it is this Bizarro version me who was friends with the nerd and who turns out to be kind of a Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg kind of guy later on in life. His girlfriend was basically like Claire, Molly Ringwald, except, and she was a cheerleader, except that she gets married, divorced, and has 2 kids and is kind of a cheerleader in her own life and to her kids. And then maybe there's the theater friends who's the beard to the closeted gay guy in high school, and they were inseparable. There were those friends that always were together, and she was the stagehand and blah, blah, blah. What if they all were weirdly friends and very close, and my character was King Shit of Turd Mountain in high school?
Wow. That's very descriptive.
I like it.
I mean, but you know those people, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are sitting in the bar right now and is like, I ran the touchdown to win the game against the Eagles in 1993. And you're like, were you in the NFL? He's like, no, high school. Like, oh, the Eagles of whatever butthole county you came from. Okay.
Right, that one.
Yeah, like, wow, you're still thinking
really
about that.
Really impressing people, yeah.
So we're like, okay, so what if I didn't get hurt and I had this group of friends and I probably would have gone to college for a wrestling scholarship, which I think is kind of humorous in itself. Like, what do you do with a wrestling scholarship? Like, well, today from 8 to 12, I have to roll around with some dudes.
That sounds great.
Well, our proclivities, I think, are different. But so I was like, okay, so he goes to college and he gets hurt. What if I got hurt there? And I didn't have the safety net of the friends that I had in high school to lift me up and support me and to be like, yeah, I do theater. I'm in college and I'm still continuing that testosterone of sports, and I no longer have my friends. What if then this character becomes a depressive alcoholic and dependent on pain medication? And then one day he wakes up and he's 35 and he's never got traction in his life. He's kind of aware that the best years of his life are behind him. He's overweight. When people do realize he is that all-star from back then, they're kind of judgmental, like, and just like, oh no, this is what you
Look
turned
at you
into.
now.
I know, wow.
And like, so the movie picks up with that, with me as the lead character, who 3 days in a row, you're kind of seeing like the worst 3 days of this existence, and him realizing, I have nothing to live for. And he's like, I'm going to kill myself. And I'm going to write a kind of a suicide email to that Breakfast Club group of friends that I haven't talked to in a while. And I'm just going to say, like, look, it's my fault as much as yours that we haven't stayed in touch. I've just realized my best days are behind me, and I think that's sad. And I hope you all are doing well, but I'm going to check out. And he's like, I'm going to do it at the campgrounds where we last hung out all together senior year after graduation.
Oh my gosh.
Bye. And then
Heavy, yeah.
he goes to, well, and that's the thing is like what I wanted with this slasher film, there will be inherent like humor in the dark comedy of honesty and awkward interactions, kind of like the people seeing the lead character and being like, ooh, this is a lot.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened?
Did you get stung by like a lot of bees? Or
and then just never get better? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Constant allergic reaction. So I think there's humor in that, because I've been asked like, oh, is it a comedy? And it's like, well, you want to make very, very sure that when you're dealing with depression and suicide, or even the thoughts of
a little bit
suicide,
of comic relief is necessary. Yeah.
It's necessary, but you also don't want to make sure that you're mocking it. Because I know for me, suicide, some people are like, it's a coward's way out. And it's like, well, for me, it's a disease, and the disease wins. Mental health, it's hard just to make sure that we're not making a mockery of it. 100%. And I was like, but what if the Friday the 13th movies that always just have a disposable group of dum-dums, that there was like a connection to some of these characters before we started picking them off? Wouldn't that be a lot better than just like faceless people with boobs? I mean,
in white boobs. T-shirts and it's raining outside, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
they're all like that.
And so then the movie is where it gets into the more horrific parts. Is then when he goes to the campsite, which also we're doing a thing where the Friday the 13th movies are really fun in the last 15 to 20 minutes. And that's kind of what you remember, because the rest of the movie is actually pretty dull. The action and the kills happen then.
Sure.
We're doing that in the middle of the movie. And so when he goes to kill himself, his friends show up to stop him, like in the nick of time, to kind of do an intervention. And unbeknownst to them, there is a masked suicidal maniac escaped killer from a mental hospital right in the woods, who's watching all of them, waiting to pick them off one by one, thus making the lead character have to confront, okay, do I want to die?
Right. Yeah.
And so he has to make
fun spin.
He has to make an active decision. What am I going to do to really decide, is my life worth living?
Wow.
Well, that sucks for his friends who want to help, and they're getting picked off now.
How much?
All your friends are dead.
Now, how much time does he have to determine all of this? Like, what's the timeline? Is it days? Is it hours?
I will tell you that the onslaught of slaughtery occurs in a day, and
he's a quick serial killer.
Sure is.
He's efficient.
What I was saying, and there's knives, there's machetes, there's chainsaws.
Of course.
So
you need options, yeah.
Well, because there's a lot. I brought my killing equipment. Well, so there's a line actually in it by Larry, who was the closeted gay in high school, who's now out and happy and had moved away from Kentucky to a bigger city where he can actually be himself and be happy. Sure. He talks about, he's like, when he gets back there at the campsite where they used to hang out, he's like, man, I was so naive as a kid. Like, this is the perfect setup for a horror movie.
And foreshadowing.
He's like, we were drunk and high. Like, we could have been taken out like that. And he's like, but you don't ever see middle-aged people in horror movies and camping get killed by knives, machetes, or chainsaws. If you see middle-aged people die in movies, they die of diabetes, heart attacks, cancer, rare blood disease. And so, that's just a way to get across the mentality of just like what your brain is thinking about when you're of a certain age, and you just never see that in a movie. And I thought it's like if someone approached me like, "Do you want to make a Friday the 13th movie?" I'd be like, "Sure." But this is the kind of Friday the 13th movie I would want to make.
Sure.
People who have kids back home and, are bitching about like taxes, which I mean, that's not what happens in this movie necessarily.
Right.
But yeah, so you're saying that he's efficient and he kills everybody in a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's because, as I said, I didn't want the last 15 to 20 minutes to be the action gore that you kind of remember and are like,
just
really
like waiting
liking.
for it to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're just like, how much bad dialogue do I have to go through? And this
How long
isn't
is this
even porn.
movie? My God.
It's only 87 minutes, and I feel like it's been 3 hours. But so what we do is we're putting that in the middle of the movie, and since the movie's already called All Your Friends Are Dead,
Mm-hmm.
we believe you already know what you're going to get.
Sure.
So we do that in the middle, because then the third act is not necessarily a twist, but it goes in a direction that after you see it, you're like, oh yes, okay, this makes sense. But when you're watching the movie, you would pause it and be like, wait, everyone's dying. All the friends are dead now. And the movie must be close to being done. And you press pause and you look at the runtime and you're like, I'm only at minute 45. I still have 40 more minutes of this movie. What the fuck is going to happen?
I have done that. I have done that in movies where I'm like, okay, we've got 15 minutes. What the hell's going to happen now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so again, like already having the spoilerific name and wanting to tantalize a horror audience that is very savvy and smart to knowing kind of what's coming up.
Sure.
Having that in the middle and then having this third act that will be equally, if not more, fulfilling for the horror slasher audience. I wanted to change the trajectory of the formulaic slasher, and I think we're going to do that, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for the audience.
That's cool.
I'm excited.
Yeah. You guys are still filming it though, right?
We are actually.
He had to get the beard off his face.
Yeah. I have a month and a half or whatever.
Get the Sasquatch look gone.
Gotcha.
I
wish I could see your arms. I can't see your arms.
But yeah, we're still filming. We actually have to film tomorrow night, and one of the big final death scenes is Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have just a couple small pickups here and there. And then we also have, because our Kickstarter, I think, still has 11 more days, we offered 2 more perks, because I don't like Kickstarters that have like 15,000 perks to choose from. So originally we just only had a few, which one is the Blu-ray, which I think is the best. We were like, okay, let's put a couple more that are maybe interesting to people before the campaign ends, which was 4 associate producer credits, which gets you on IMDb, which some people just like being like, hey, I produced a movie that's on IMDb. Look at my name. Yeah. And it's just kind of fun and an interesting badge. And the other 2, well, it's 1 perk, but we offered 2 of them, were get killed mid-credit sequence. And as soon as I posted it, immediately both of them were bought by a husband and wife couple who do a podcast about serial killers. And like, they were super excited, and they're like, well, can we wear our podcast t-shirts and kind of like promote in the scene or whatever? Do you have a scene in mind? And I was like, we didn't, but now we do. You're going to be, if you're cool with this, you're going to be doing your podcast about the serial killer from our movie.
Oh, how cool.
This is spoiled. I mean, anybody watching this, you're getting this just spoiled. And yeah, you're going to be doing a podcast. You're going to be playing yourselves. And the serial killer pops up and takes you out.
And
I won't tell you how the kills are going to happen. But yeah.
Okay,
sure.
fine.
Don't want to ruin everything. Yeah.
We like the spoilers.
That's cool, though.
We feel privileged.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever need people in the background, like drinking wine and stuff like that, we're on board.
Oh,
anytime.
And,
like people hang out in the back and like
cheese,
eating and drinking wine.
Like a cheese and cracker.
Charcuterie board.
The charcuterie board, yeah.
100%.
Well, like
girls.
a killer comes in the front, and then you guys have to, instead of the choice of wanting to live or die, you're like, do I want more cheese?
The answer is always
Is it worth it? Can I be quiet enough?
And you crunch a chip and it's dead silent.
And then we'll just heavily judge the killer as he walks by. Like, why is he carrying it like that? Like, does he have a utility belt? chainsaw there. Okay.
Stephanie's like, just grab the whole plate of cheese.
Let's just take it and go.
Yeah.
Let's just sneak out of here.
Yeah. Shit's gonna get bad. We don't have to be here and see this.
And we're not going to waste this cheese.
Right.
So
we did have a scene. We filmed in a local brewery that was very kind to let us shoot. And we put out a thing for extras. And what was funny is some people messaged and were like, so we get to drink while we're there? And I'm like, no, unfortunately not. Like, it'll be non-alcoholic beer just to look like you have something. And you don't get to talk. When we say action, you have to look like you're talking and having a good time. But for sound purposes, we're going to put that in later.
sure.
It's super not glamorous.
No alcohol, and you got to pretend talk.
Yeah, but is there still cheese?
You know what? As long as it's not crackers, right? Not crackers.
The cheese was real. And it was 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
So,
I love cheese on Sunday mornings. I'm fine
and
with that.
Saturday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday. You know what?
Why limit ourselves? You know?
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days.
Okay. Do you want to play a stupid little game with us?
100%, yes.
Okay.
Great.
So we do would you rather questions way too often. So
just in general. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it'll just pop up and
just for a scenario.
you're right.
Would you rather I not ask you this question or ask you this?
No, both options are would you rather me ask the question or ask the question? Because I'm going to ask.
Right. You don't have an option.
So they are horror movie related, though. Okay. Ready, Courtney?
I'm ready.
Okay. Would you rather receive the Annabelle doll from The Conjuring as a gift or receive the Chucky doll from Child's Play?
Ooh.
Oh, man.
And I haven't heard these questions either.
I know.
Oh, are you guys also going to answer them?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I'll give mine first. It's a Sophie's choice because is my answer like filtered through what film series I like more? Because if that's true, the Child's Play, man, if people haven't watched his last two installments, not the remake with Mark Hamill, which is its own thing and fine, whatever, but like the Brad Dourif.
I feel like you're judging it right now.
It's so much its own thing because it's not Charles Lee Ray, the killer who put his soul into the body.
The doll.
Right.
Yeah, it's a robotic doll that just does bad, and it's like a Teddy Ruxpin, just an evil. And so it's its own thing, and it just happens to be called Child's Play and kind of move through some of the similar beats.
Okay.
But yeah, so like it's fine. It's a fine movie.
Not the same, but okay.
You'll know when I'm shitting on a movie.
No filter.
Annabelle Annabelle Creations.
Mm-hmm.
Holy moly. I forgot. There's some movies I go into that are horror, and I forget they're making PG-13 horror movies nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of them, and I was like, oh, there's just something that's missing. Like even Happy Death Day. I enjoyed Happy Death Day a lot, but when I left, I was like, there was just something small missing, and I can't put my finger on it. And then I saw the poster, and it said PG-13, and I said, "That's it.
There it is.
That's it.
That's it."
They can only take it so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They can't give it to its full potential.
Well, even one of our episodes, we did The Grudge recently, and we were going through some fun facts after it, and they kept a lot of the gore out of the remake, the US version of it, so they can keep it a PG-13 rating, opposed to the original, I guess, the Japanese version of it, which was an R rated for it.
Right.
The original Japanese version doesn't have the narrative. You're talking about the US Sarah Michelle Gellar one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the Japanese one is very artful in its visuals.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative isn't as strong as the Sarah Michelle Gellar, but it's almost like they needed to blend the two of those to make a better movie. Okay, Annabelle versus Chucky.
I digress.
Chucky is constantly trying. This is going to sound way dirtier than I mean it. He's constantly trying to put himself inside me to take over my body.
I'm going to take it in a dark way, but okay.
And I don't know that I want that. But
I don't think anybody does, but okay.
I'm also saying I don't know if I want that. Like, I don't know.
There's a fine line.
Sure.
Yeah.
50-50 shot, really.
You know,
50-50.
love is blind. Who knows until...
No judgment. No, not at all.
Kinsey scale, it depends where you fall. I would say I would rather take home the Annabelle if we're saying from the movies. Because the real Annabelle is just a Raggedy Ann doll that's like
Right.
kind of not creepy at all. Oh my god, I don't know what it is. I have such a hard time watching the Conjuring movies because the Warrens, what big pieces of shit they were in real life. And they're like played as this like, oh shucks couple in the movie. That
I didn't know that in real life they were different. I had no idea.
Oh my god. They ran Pray the Gay Away camps. There were so many kids that have committed suicide that were forced to go to their camps. Are you
kidding me?
They are
That's awful.
Awful people.
Oh my gosh.
I know the movie portrays them as like very like positive and helpful and enlightening. Like,
Yes. And it's like, oh no, my wife. Oh, she can't have those visions anymore. Very hard on her.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So like watching that, I'm like, I know you're supposed to be able to separate. I just have a hard time doing it because I feel like it's glorifying them.
Sure.
And there was one of the doctors who was with them when they went to the Amityville house where they kind of spent the night. And he's like, if, what's her name? What's Warren's first name?
His, Ed?
Ed and Lorraine.
And Lorraine, yep.
Lorraine. He's like, if Ed or Lorraine Warren told me that it was raining outside, I'd get a second opinion because of how much they lie.
Wow.
Whoa.
Somebody's upset.
Well, I think they're very exploitative. Like,
I
think they exploited everything. But again, digression of, I think I take the Annabelle role. I think it's
there's a question. I forgot. I forgot we asked a question.
I will chase rabbits all day.
We'll just corral you back, little kitten. Like, come on.
Come back here. Like squirrel. Something shiny.
Well, I feel like my first instinct is Chucky. Because when we watched the first Child's Play, I'm like, can't someone just like grab him or kick him or something? Like, it's just like, he's just like a little doll. Just grab him. Like, but then also after watching the first Conjuring, Annabelle just ends up in like a glass box and doesn't seem like she can do anything outside of the box.
Okay.
That's it. Right?
So it might be like, that might be the better choice. Yeah. Like, she can fuck up people's day and possess all this shit, but oh god, she's got glass around her. Like, how? Well,
it's the same thing with The Conjuring too. Like, he had all of these like artifacts from all
like
of
these
trophies.
Things. Let's call them trophies. Because they're trophies.
They're trophies.
Yeah. Trophy room.
100%. Yeah.
But I mean, so all of this was just in a regular house.
Yeah.
Didn't have
it's
any
fine
kind of,
in
like,
there on the shelf.
Right.
But, yeah. I don't
a little
know.
Weird.
You know, because after you vanquish a demon or a horror, you want to have it as close to you as possible.
Of course. In the room next to where your child sleeps, of course. Definitely.
Stupid.
Yes. Right?
Stupid
when we did
Warrens.
The Conjuring, we're like, why is their daughter's room so close to this room full of all these trophies that are haunted?
Why is she allowed to walk in there?
I don't know. Okay. So I guess we're all thinking Annabelle, right?
Yes.
Annabelle.
Annabelle, 100%.
Okay. Sorry, my
your
phone's
phone
not
went.
cooperating.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Would you rather get a visit from Freddy Krueger every time you go to sleep or get kidnapped by Jigsaw from Saw?
Oh, fuck no. No.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So Elm Street is my ride or die.
Okay.
That's my series. That's my jam. I think it's the most, this is going to sound weird, but I have an explanation. It's the most realistic.
Okay.
You can
in
watch
dreams,
Friday-
you can do anything. Like, there's limitless in dreams. You can't,
Friday the
you can't go too
13th.
crazy.
Like, there could always be the worry of, like, well, who's next door and who's the creep in the mask and who's that, blah, blah, blah. Everyone, if you went and saw A Nightmare on Elm Street, everyone had to do what the characters in that movie did that night after seeing the movie. And you could have had a Freddy dream, which dreams are as real to you as when you're having them.
Absolutely.
As anything else. So you could have the exact same experience as the characters in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think it's the most terrifying series. And I love there are characters. I think I was talking about disposable characters before. There's deeper characters in that series that extend to multiple movies, and there's stories that extend to multiple movies. Like Friday the 13th only has like the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, which is kind of bonkers. Gosh, Saw. Oh,
It's hard because Saw is awful and gruesome, and I hate everything about it. But you just got to follow the rules, you know? Like, I don't know.
cut open your chest to pull out a key, or like kill your
other
dog.
person's.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
It's too graphic.
I don't like excessive gore. That's kind of one of my things in scary movies. I don't want to see
And it's torture. It's straight up torture.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I'm good.
I'm okay with it. So, this is, again, a small chase of a rabbit. Have either of you watched the original I Spit on Your Grave?
No.
So that is a movie that is a Grindhouse 70s movie that is notorious for having a graphic rape scene.
Okay.
Which it's very hard to be like, hey, you want to watch a horror movie? You want to watch the one that's notorious for its graphic rape scene? Like, it's hard to get excited about that.
Right.
But it is a movie that is in the pantheons of like a horror movie that just keeps on being talked about.
Okay.
So I had not seen it up until a couple years ago, which is very rare. As I've told you, to not have seen something like I've seen Last House on the Left, which also has all rape scenes are awful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It has a rape scene that is, no fun, like as it should be, no fun.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But again, hard to watch. And so me, my dad, and my brother Eric, we're like, okay, we're gonna watch I Spit on Your Grave. None of us have seen it. Like, strap in. It's kind of like watching a Darren Aronofsky movie. Like, you're like Requiem for a Dream. You watch it once and you're like, I'm good.
Don't 100%.
I'm good. Yeah. I've done it once. Never again.
But the next one you're gonna watch, you're just gonna be like, oh, okay, this is gonna be emotionally draining and not entertaining. But it's a weird thing to go into, especially when you know. And so we started, and yes, there is a 30-minute rape scene.
What?
Are you kidding me?
But a little bit of the Norm Macdonald, I said horror and comedy kind of being, I think, weirdly interchangeable. Mm-hmm. It's not comedic, but it goes on for so long that if it were just a minute rape scene, I think I'd be like, oh, why'd they have to do that? Like, oh, I hate this. Like, that was graphic and blah, blah, blah. It goes on so long that it's part of the narrative. There's a reason why it goes on so long. And you always feel, most people do, as they should, unless they're sociopaths or psychopaths, you feel empathetic and sympathetic towards the victim.
Sure.
And you hate the people doing it. And a revenge horror movie like this, it's its own subgenre. You just want to see her get revenge. Mm-hmm. And because it goes on for so long, then the next act of the movie is her then, spoilers, her plotting for the next year how she's going to get all of them. And like, you're just because how long and graphic that was, you're just so invested. And you're just so in it. You're just so on her side that when she's
so angry.
When she confronts them, it's almost like the end fight of a Rocky movie. Like, you're just standing there and just cheering her on. And you're just like, yes, fuck them up. Like, kill those guys, kill their toxic masculinity, their whiteness of thinking they could just get away with it. Like, you're just with it. And is it a movie I'm going to watch again ever? Probably not. And it's a hard movie to talk someone into it. But after seeing it, it wasn't just like Cannibal Holocaust that has some fucked up things in it that's really the only reason to watch it. Like, it had something, it meant something to the story. And then I heard a story from the director is he was inspired to make it because one night while he was out driving, he saw a disheveled woman on the side of the road and asked her, "Are you okay? Do you need a ride?" And she had been raped, and he took her to the hospital. And that just, him experiencing that just had him come up with this story of like, I wish we could find the people who did it, and I wish I could help her, get revenge. Yeah.
And that was basically his revenge for her in that movie. Yeah, probably.
So why did I talk about that? And you're talking about like brutality on film. Because then I thought of when you were talking about Saw, it's the funniest thing about Saw is Dr. Neil Gordon or Dr. Gordon cut Saw's off his foot, and someone has finally pointed out that if he'd have reached with the saw, the hacksaw, it would have been long enough to grab the phone. just laying there. Like, he's reaching and he's like just a little too far away.
Yeah.
But that Saul is like this long.
Sure.
He could
Give you
have
an
just
extra
been
2
like,
feet of reach. Yep.
Yeah, and that I can't watch the movie the same now after seeing that.
Well, now you ruined it for us too. Thank you.
It was ruined before. It's fine. I hated it. I hated that movie. We only watched the first one.
Oh,
no.
Saw 2.
Why?
I don't want to cave to your peer pressure.
Saw 2 makes Saw 1 better.
Well, I guess
I'm not saying you're gonna love it, and you don't have to go past that, because then it is just you're rooting for the most fucked up imagery that you can see in like
I'm not
pools
interested.
of blood. But 2 makes 1 better.
Why?
Look at her. She's
would
like,
be spoiling.
Prove yourself.
I can't control my face. I'm just so
the story that happens in 2 explains some things and elevates
that are missing in 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, to say anything more would be spoiler. It would be spoilery for me to then. I would say I'd rather have Freddy dreams.
Oh, there's a question. Okay,
because I had Freddy dreams. Like I had bunk beds and I had a ceiling fan, and like I had bunk beds because I thought it'd be cool to have 2 beds in the room. Like my one brother was too old. He didn't live with us anymore. My other brother was like 5 years older than me, and we didn't share a room. I just had bunk beds in my bedroom, and I would I'd be like, let's go on a vacation and sleep on that top bunk tonight. And I would. You're kind of close to the ceiling, and so I would see the ceiling fan, and I would have Freddy nightmares. And I had a nightmare once where I was in my bedroom, and the ceiling fan the blades of the ceiling fan turned into his claws. And came off and cut me.
Hard pass.
Because I was so close. But I'd rather have those dreams than be put in
tortured.
Because I could have powers in those dreams.
Right.
Access them like Dream Warriors.
Do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's the better way to go.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not interested in Saw. I'm good. Thank you.
Saw, scene, bye.
Done.
See ya. Yeah.
Did you have like nightmares as a kid after watching all these scary movies, or
100%.
like not until? How do you not?
Yeah. Do you still have them?
Occasionally from time to time. They're definitely not as vivid, which makes me sad because, well, now that I'm like writing this stuff, like Wes Craven used to be able to dream journal, and he used to be able to have very vivid dreams. And you know how like sometimes we have multiple dreams in a night, and you'll wake up and you'll be like, I have vague remembrance of this dream, but very clear on this one, which must have been the last one. He used to be able to, or so he says, or said, because he can't anymore. He's dead.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, R.I.P. Gotta get my grammar correct. He used to be able to dream and then wake up at the end of the dream while in his like sleep, write it down or record it, and then go back to bed, sleep, dream a little bit more, get into REM sleep, wake up, journal it, go back to sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Who knew that was a thing?
I don't have that kind of time.
I just wake up and be like, did I fart? Like, what is...
That's about the extent of it, right?
Yeah. You just farted yourself awake is what happened.
Yeah, basically.
Of course.
Okay, next one.
Okay.
Would you rather babysit Damien from The Omen or babysit Reagan from The Exorcist?
Your mother sews socks in hell. That's the television dub. Your mother sews socks in hell.
It's so bad. It's so bad.
It's so good. It's like Die Hard. Yippee-ki-yay melon farmer. Damien and you're just babysitting.
Yeah. But also, I like to imagine that like Reagan's at the point of where she's like confined to the bed. Like she's not like climbing down the stairs backwards. Like I like to think that that's the situation.
You have
then that's easier.
Right.
That's easier.
You have other babysitters with you because you have an old priest and a young priest.
100%.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And she's contained,
Right.
and I can just like sit in the living room on my phone, pretend that nothing's happening, and I'm good with that. But like Damien, none of his babysitters survived, like at all. They like jumped out windows and shit.
Well, it was all for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all for you, Damien. I would go Man, because Damien only really messed with you if you fucked with him, right? If you were in the way of his power.
Yeah, but
Gotta
if
stay
you
on
were
his good side.
babysitting him, you're eventually going to have to say no, right?
That's not
Unless you draw your allegiance to the Dark One.
No rules.
Because
True. You're not wrong.
His stepmom, his aunt, and Damien Omen too. That's a reveal at the end that she has given his allegiance to him the whole time. But then she ends up dying though too in that fire, I think. So, booze.
Wow,
I don't know. There's just some things you can't go back from, a la Crucifix in the nether regions and Exorcist.
100%. Yeah.
You see that and you're like...
When I saw him, like, what the entire fuck now? Like,
100%.
this is not okay.
If you're babysitting someone, you like open a door and like that's happening, you just back away slowly. You just close the door and you just get the fuck up out of there. You're like, I'm done.
Like, look, I want to respect you and your kink and what you're into, and I'm glad you get behind the door.
I want to do it. Yeah.
Not involving anybody else.
You're like, ooh, sorry to disturb you.
We'll have to talk about that later, yeah.
It's a lot to unpack. So we'll just,
Man, I'm going to, okay, I guess you just have to make a decision. I'm going to say, I think you swayed me with Reagan and she's tied up in the room.
That's the only way it's doable.
And
she's not contained.
Right. The only thing she does is... Because Father Karras makes the decision to take over he opens up his body and soul to take the demon before jumping out the window. Oh, and I can't tell if the heart attack of the old priest, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. I don't think that's the devil. I think that's just he's old and all of this is getting to him.
Yeah.
I think Reagan, because she really doesn't do anything.
Right.
Like, you're going to have to get a carpet cleaner for the piss.
100%.
But
100%.
Well, it's fine. I mean, she's tied up. You just keep the door closed. You go downstairs. You have your glass of wine and your cheese platter.
You just hope it's over soon.
You have your $20 to order some pizza. Your boyfriend comes over and he's like, "What's that noise? Why is it cold in here?" Yeah,
just don't worry about it. We'll put the volume on the TV up a little higher. It's okay.
They got Netflix.
It's true.
Yeah, it's true. I think Reagan. I think you swayed me.
You and Reagan too?
I'm gonna. Yes.
Okay. Would you rather be alone in a room with Michael Myers, or have a dinner with Hannibal from Silence of the Lambs? I think the follow-up would be like, is Hannibal preparing the dinner? Because that I'm not interested in at all.
Is he having you for dinner, or is he having you for dinner?
100%. Are you a guest, or are you the entree?
Is he taking off the arm that he's going to be serving up?
Or are you Ray Liotta, where his head's open and he's just searing his brain? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the technicalities are important in this.
And I feel like you presented the question, so you could give us clarification on the technicalities.
I'll clarify.
Please. Okay.
I'm going to say that we're going to be dinner guests, and he is not cooking dinner. He's just there.
But you're unaware of what the dinner is. So it's
Let's do that.
It's like some sort of steak or whatever or something, and you're not a vegetarian, Or
it's like, served a nice Chianti and some fava beans. That's all you know. That's all you know.
I pick that 100% because he is bougie. That'd be some good dinner. Even
regardless of what it is, it's gonna be nice. Yeah.
How do you know what you're eating half the time anyway if you're not preparing it? Or even if you're preparing it, we get stuff from the store and like 100%. This isn't like
I assume it's chicken. I don't know. Yeah. I'm told it is.
It's not like tinfoil hat conspiracy, but like who knows what we're getting? That's okay. The tube of ground meat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Sure.
Why do you have to say it like that?
Blindly.
It could be a package. It could be a package of ground meat.
And also the gesture made it better too.
A tube.
Well, because like the only way to get it open, because it has those metal rings on the tips.
We're gonna go into this now. Okay, go ahead.
Is to cut it, and then it's like, ew, I just got ground meat juice on my scissors. Yeah, and then like you have to like peel it,
push
like you're taking a condom off of it, or yeah.
Oh man, that was fun.
So you won't be served that at Hannibal's, at least, that we know of.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
I don't even know how to answer that one. I plead the fifth.
Okay, I have one more, so we'll do the other one. Okay, would you rather spend the summer at Camp Crystal Lake or the winter at the Overlook Hotel?
Oh, at the Overlook Lodge.
From
Oh
Shining.
man,
Oh yeah.
you know what? Really, and I know it was mixed, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a big fan of The Shining, of the Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall Shining.
It really takes forever to get through.
Yeah, and like I love the acting.
Sure.
I'm just not a big fan. I really enjoyed Doctor Sleep, weirdly, and I think it's because of my love of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So they kind of play with the dreamscape there, and there's these like basically vampires who suck the soul and energy. There's a form of vampires, just not blood.
Right.
Who have these powers, and then there's Danny who has these powers in these dreams, and then there's that little girl who has the powers in the dream. Like there was just a lot of things that I was just like, this is fun, and then you're getting to use the best visuals from The Shining, and you're getting to play in the sandbox of that world.
Sure.
So Overlook Lodge or Camp Crystal Lake?
I like camping. I go to the lake.
Well, I like not
camping,
sweating and waking up gross, so I would love the comfortability
camping.
of the hotel.
100%.
Agreed. I like glamping, or being like near it to where I can leave and then go take a nice shower.
Go to like a cabin or something.
You can see it behind the glass.
And I'm with you. 100%.
Or just like go to a lodge and hang up a picture of a lake, and then like that's cool too.
I'm also cool with like going to a hotel, and then during the day maybe going like a little trail like nearby it.
Go to the
and
vineyard.
Then go back to my 100%. And then go back to my hotel, maybe some in the pool or something, and then just not submerge myself 100% into it.
And then like, telling people you went hiking that day.
100%.
Yeah.
I'll take a bunch of pictures to prove I did it, and everyone believe me.
Right. I won't.
You'll strap a phone to like a dog and have it run. And be like, this was my morning run today.
Oh my God, that's a great idea. It's a great idea.
But that all being said, dissecting the movies, once you're inside the Overlook Lodge, you are susceptible to possession and the evil.
And you're pretty much trapped. Yeah.
Right. Camp Crystal Lake, you didn't give this caveat, but I'm going to say I'm a camper.
Okay.
And if you remember, most of those movies,
there's the counselors.
It's the counselors, and it's before the camp opens. Jason
I like the loophole.
I know.
Jason Lives is the only movie where there's fucking kids at the camp, and not a one of them die. Which I'm like, why? Why have kids and not kill a few? Now, there's a great line where the kids are under the bed while Jason's outside, and the one kid looks at the other and he goes, "So what did you want to be when you grew up?" But because Jason Lives it's zombie Jason. It's the introduction of zombie Jason. It's the third in the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, played by a third different actor, and it's Thomas McLaughlin made basically a parody of what the Friday the 13th movies have become. It's the sixth in the series. And so that's why it is held in such high regard. Alice Cooper did the song Man Behind the Mask. Like, it's got all the 80s cheese going for it. But it's good because it's kind of making fun of how dumb the rest of the series and repetitive the series was. Like, that's why, like, part 4, they introduced Tommy Jarvis. When you put Corey Feldman as that little kid, and you're not at the camp, they're at these houses that are by the camp, the stakes are that much higher because you're like, I don't want to see a little kid die. But in part 6, when there's a bunch of them, it's like, you got enough. Get rid of a few of them.
Just pick a couple of them off.
Yeah, otherwise, why? Why are we having them in this movie? That's why I will take, and I wouldn't stay the night at sleepaway camp. Because those kids get murdered. So sleepaway camp, I would take any day. And it's not just for the reveal at the end. I think that movie works a lot better than the Friday the 13th series. Another one is The Burning at that camp. Oh, if you've never seen it, there's an amazing kill. It's weirdly the first big production produced by the Weinsteins.
Oh, okay.
And Jason Alexander with hair plays a camp counselor. And there's a kill scene that you will not be able to forget.
Hmm.
So yes,
Okay.
my answer is Camp Crystal Lake, because the likelihood, like if I'm going there as a camper, I'm probably going to live.
I like the loophole. Camp Crystal Lake with the loophole of being a camper, not a counselor. I like it.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that.
Right.
That's where it's at.
That's where it's at.
That's it.
We did it. Let's go home.
Done.
Shut it
Wrap
Look
it
at
up.
that. Look at that.
Thank you for playing our stupid little game with us.
That was amazing.
I want to talk about your short horror film Racist that we watched on YouTube.
That I've not seen. I've not seen your reaction to yet.
I don't think our watch along is out yet. I think it's the next one to come out. Okay. But yeah.
Feel free to ask any questions. There are no dumb questions. And feel free to give me your unfiltered opinion. I can take it. I'm a big boy.
Can you tell everybody what it's about first, and then we'll kind of dissect it a little bit?
It is about, I am a middle-aged 35-year-old white man in Northern Kentucky. So doing something about racism probably isn't my area of expertise, or I shouldn't be necessarily the person with the conch who is talking about that. But what I did want to do is, I'm a big fan of David Cronenberg in body horror. And I believe, kind of like the song from Avenue Q, everybody's a little bit racist. I think we all are. I think if everyone acknowledged that we all are racist to some degree, and if we communicated that to one another, tension would be a lot less stressed. And so I approached it with that. I was like, okay, what if this guy in a span of one day just has all these moments of internal racism, and say his internal racism is like an internal thermometer, that it just then boils over after all these little instances of it.
And boy, does it. Yeah.
And what if it physically manifested itself to assist? And that's basically the short, and it's examples of that through paranoia of people of different races in larger numbers than yours. Their conversation at the beginning, which if you have to be a really big horror fan and you'd have to really listen closely to the conversation, the lead character is describing little kids with hammers wearing parkas beating the shit out of a teacher. He's describing the scene from The Brood, which is a David Cronenberg movie, where the little monster children who wear parkas take little hammers and kill a teacher in a classroom. And so he's talking about a movie he watched the night before. And so that was just my little tip of the hat of being like, thank you, David Cronenberg, for inspiring basically the genre of body horror.
Yeah.
And so then there's Call's credit card company, which anybody who has credit cards or health or insurance, like when he calls the hospital, it's finances are very tricky, and like you get very anxious when you're calling anything about that, or like health insurance. You're like, I want to make sure things are covered, so your stress level is high. And then when you, like, I know, and I can admit to the internal racism, when someone comes on the phone and has an accent that seems to be of another race or country, and they say their name is something like Steve, I am like, I don't know. I just put up that's my internal racism of just like, I'm not like, I think this race or whatever is less than I am or whatever. My knee jerks a little bit, and I'm just like, my trust is a little less because I'm worried about the insurance or whatever, and this, and I want to make sure I completely understand everything you're saying. I really want to make sure you completely understand everything I'm saying. I think that is everyday racism that like people experience, and it's okay. So that's, what did you guys think?
I think in a good way.
7-minute long thing.
I think it was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
In a good way, in the sense of like, you can really feel the main character who's struggling with this racism, like leaving his house, walking to the park, bumping into someone who he's uncomfortable by, going back into his house and completely paranoid, just peeking out his window, out the peephole, like feeling like he's being watched. And it's like, you can feel his discomfort, which is uncomfortable while you're watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think my favorite part was at the end when the guy like walks in the door to give him his wallet back, and he's like, "Cut my mouth."
It's so like that's actors Aaron Harris who gets to play a cop in All Your Friends Are Dead,
Oh,
and I
cool.
was like, this is a much better time for you. You're not getting sprayed with yogurt and cottage cheese.
Oh my god!
It was such a visual. We both were like,
you did real good on that. You did real good.
Money shot.
Oh my gosh. It was good though.
You took it like a trooper. Thank you. On the scale of the other shorts you've watched, like say something like Altitude, narratively, did it make sense beginning, middle, and end, and satiate? Like, oh, I just watched a short movie. Like I got a story, I got a little bit, or compared to other things you've watched, where do you
I'll be honest, Altitude, I still am confused on Altitude. Your movie, I understood, I liked the creative name of it. I understood what the message was from beginning to end. And I think it was done clear, but not in an obvious way, if that makes sense.
And
like you had to think about it.
And it gave you emotion. Like you could feel he had so much anxiety and everything like happening that you could
eating him and
I mean, you could kind of put yourself in his situation as far as like you could feel what he feels, which is important for me because I want to feel that emotion of somebody.
And I think it's important too for doing such a short film. Like you have such limited time to get your point across and get, from A to B, and doing it in 7 minutes and still be able to convey some type of feeling. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, talking about like the collaborative effort, is Braden Firebrand, who did music, sound mixing, and Foley sound effects and score for my first short film, Call, also did it for Racist, and is also going to be working on All Your Friends Are Dead. What he did with the sound mix and the score and the music for Racist really, really helps sell that, like you said, that building anxiety and paranoia of that lead character, because it does, like the way he does the mix and with the bass, there's kind of like this underlying heartbeat that's always in there that you don't necessarily pick up on till a little bit later. It's there throughout the whole mix, his heartbeat. Because I want to play with that too, of also with colors of like blue to red, which also police brutality and like with racism and stuff, and also just from cool to seeing red kind of
emotionally
falls. Emotionally is like that internal temperature thermometer thing. The thing, like talking about All Your Friends Are Dead, when people have asked will there be humor, and we talked about that earlier, I think Racist, or I should say Racist has purposeful moments of humor, which, I mean, it might not like seem funny, but like the cyst growing, or like even more earlier, that song that comes on the main guy's headphones is super on the nose. Like lyrically, if you listen to it, we were not being subtle, we were not being clever, and that was an original song written for Racist by Braden. He wrote and recorded that. And cool. He's like, we want some like white boy rock, some like yacht rock, or some like early 2000s, like not Blink-182, but like worse than Blink-182 kind of sounding thing. And he's like, what about this? And I was like, oh, I love it. That's hilarious. There's zero subtlety, and like the lyrics are just stating out like, I hate that things are changing. I wish they could be the way, But yeah, thank you guys for enjoying it and feeling. I'm glad that it reached its goal of building that paranoia as you're watching it.
It was great.
Absolutely.
Everybody should check it out. It's spelt with a Y instead of an I.
So, we had problems with that.
So I can't wait while doing the watch. So my brother was like, when we do the title card at the beginning and it's called Race, and it says it there, which anybody watching it would kind of know what it is if they're wherever they're watching it at a film festival or blah, blah, blah. He's like, I think you should take that out. He's like, I don't think you should tell people like what's going to be happening. And I was like, yeah, but I think people are going to see it and then be like, racist. Well, that's not spelled right.
Right.
And like they're not gonna like register like cyst, like, huh? And then when it gets to the end, and then it comes
You're
back
like,
again, and you see it again. You're like, oh, yeah,
I get it
there
now.
it is.
There
Yep.
it is.
racist, cis.
Cis.
If you all want to, I can't share it publicly yet, personally, because it's in film festivals. But if you share the link in your video or show notes, that's fine and out of my hands. I just can't personally share the link.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that for sure.
Absolutely.
And we'll definitely add to the for the episode. We'll put in the notes in the for this episode
absolutely.
too.
Perfect. I can't wait to have more people see it because I think I can't technically have it unlisted until February.
Oh yeah, because you had to send it to us. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Let's see if I have
gotta continue.
my little awkward segue into looking stuff up.
We'll cut this in post.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
Dustin might not.
Well,
probably not.
That's the thing is, especially making it independent, a very low budget because the money we've spent thus far for All Your Friends Are Dead have come out of the pockets of me and Nick Hyance, and we've got an amazing team and actors and everything. Everyone's getting paid, and that I know that sounds like everyone should get paid. In the world of indie, like it's like those short films, except for materials, everyone did that because they believed in the project.
That's awesome.
And after those, like, again, Aaron Harris was in Racist, and I was like, oh, I want to work with you again. Like, I want to work with everybody that was in it, but I was like, oh, you'd be perfect for this part, and you don't have to get sprayed in the face with gross stuff. And so then I was like, and I get to pay you this time. And so, like, that's what I would always love to do is everyone who did and gave those favors for those things that they didn't get paid for, bringing them on to to a thing later on and paying them for their talent and time. We have an amazing special effects and makeup crew who've worked on Haunt, which if you haven't seen it, I think it's on Amazon Prime still. It was written by the guys who wrote A Quiet Place. It's phenomenal. It is you're gonna feel like it feels like Saw, like it's torture porn, because the premise is, what if these young kids go to this haunted house that's secluded and they have to sign a waiver and they have to give their cell phones, and they're like, oh, this is just to be like, oh, something could happen. Something does happen.
Of course. Of course it does.
Yeah. Always.
Always.
But so our team worked on that. They worked on this gruesome cult horror movie called Candy Corn. They worked on a Hillbilly Elegy with Glenn Close and Amy Adams. They've just worked on a lot of great things, and we're really fortunate to have them doing the special effects and the makeup for our movie.
That's really cool.
What are the next couple of steps for your movie? Like how like when does it come out? What's the next steps for it?
So that plays part and parcel with the Kickstarter. So it still has 11 days. We reached our minimum goal, which was $5,000. And all of this money is going to post-production to get it done as quick as possible. And like expenses people don't think about, like talking about festivals before, festivals cost money. Sure. And they actually cost a lot, especially when it's a feature film. Luckily, short films are a little less pricey, but we want it to have the best sound mix. We want it to have the best score. We want it to look the best, color grade. And the more money we can raise, the quicker that can happen and the better that can happen. So our stretch goal in the next 11 days is, which whenever this airs, it might not be 11 days, but like go and check it out and see how many days are left and get a Blu-ray. The Blu-ray is the only way to guarantee that you'll see this movie by October 2022. Because the movie's going to be done and wrapped and mixed and blah, 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 the way it's going to be able to be seen in its entirety by probably June or July of 2022. Okay. But then the next step is finding someone who's interested in buying it, like doing the distribution, getting it seen by more people. And how is that going to be done? We'll be submitting it to festivals, so it just won't be out there publicly. Like we'll be trying to get it on a streaming platform. And that just takes time after it's done. And so the reason why I pushed the Blu-ray so hard is regardless of all of that and how much time that takes behind the scenes, you will have the Blu-ray by October 2022. And that Blu-ray will have exclusive commentary that will only be on that Blu-ray. And it'll be numbered, and horror fans love their physical media. And the other thing is your name will be in the credits. So this thing that you help support indie horror, you get it and you watch with your friends, and even if you're like, this is trash, which I hope it's not, you're gonna be like, my name's in this trash.
I'm basically famous now.
yeah, exactly. And like, so we still have a couple of the associate producer credits perks available on Kickstarter, and that is basically what I just said. Your name is going to be listed, just not in a thank you. It's going to be executive producer, associate producer, and then your name. And then when you go up, look IMDb for our movie, you can show, and be like, look, I produce movies.
I'm kind of a big deal.
That's the next step, is like, there's a long road ahead of us that isn't sexy, like to anybody online, but it's really the next step I'm looking forward to. And the last big push that we have is just getting anyone who wants to support indie horror movies, because that's where you're going to get the new and original ideas. Horror fans love to complain that they're tired of reboots and remakes. So the best way to kind of avert that is give to movies that are definitely happening. Because like our movie's already 90, actually probably about 85% completed. So this is happening. We're already funded. You're going to get the movie. Give what you can, or share it to friends that you think might be able to help out and contribute.
How do they go about doing that? Actually contributing?
The easiest way is just go. You'll have a link probably in your show notes that they can just click. Sure. If you don't do that, you can just go to Kickstarter.com and type in "all your friends are dead." Very important. It's your YOUR, not all your friends are dead.
Good to know.
Yeah, and you'll see it. You'll see it pop up. And like I said, if you can't contribute, like that is 100% fine, because I know everybody's financial situations ebbs and flows, and are different. But share it like with your horror buddies and see if they can get a copy of the Blu-ray, and then you guys can have a watch party.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or get a copy of the Blu-ray, and if like different podcasts, as I mentioned before, who got the get killed mid-credit sequence, a way to promote your podcast, you'll get a social media shout out too that we do. Have the name in the credits be your podcast, and then that's free not free marketing, but you got a movie.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just saying.
Whatever. Do what you want.
Just saying, Tipsy Podcast, if you want to be listed in the credits.
No, we got it. We got the subtlety. We got it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So is there an actual like social media page for All Your Friends Are Dead, or is it better for them to just follow you?
It's better just to follow me, because that's where I'm going to give the most updates. We'll probably be putting one. There's a YouTube page that has all the updates we've put together, and some fun clips, and a animatic storyboard that we have for one of the kills that we haven't shown the actual footage of yet. But yeah, at Ricky Glore on Twitter, or at Glore Ricky on Instagram, you're going to see behind the scenes stuff. You're going to see cute pictures of my daughter. And so that's just the added bonus. So it's like horror, 2-year-old. Horror, 2-year-old. It's a weird roller coaster.
That was the levity we talked about before. That's the same thing.
Exactly.
Full circle.
Decapitation. 2-year-old.
Well, I mean, some days she probably could decapitate somebody. So
yes.
She's two.
Yes.
She's two.
I always say, part of my stand-up is, if you don't know what it's like having a 2-year-old, it's like constantly playing a real-life version of the game Clue, where no one has died yet.
It may happen.
Maybe
not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Because they're constantly running in and out of rooms carrying different household items. And
yes.
You gotta guess which room they're in and what they're carrying.
What weapon they got.
Yeah.
I love that analogy. I love it.
It's true.
Ricky, we thank you so much for being on our show. This was so much fun to talk to you.
Thank you. I will happily do it again.
Yay!
If you guys, even if it's just like a movie where it's not necessarily a watch along, but like you guys just watch something and you're like, oh, let's just talk about this one thing. And so you guys can just be like, what? I'm like, no,
us a little bit more insight that we don't know what's going on here.
You definitely have a whole different perspective than we do on these things.
Look, in Altitude, what they're saying is
what's really happening that you did not get.
Yeah, we're just like surface level with those movies.
Oh yeah, it's just more reaction.
I had a great time with that because I too was like, oh, this looks really good.
Yeah.
And then they did things that seem like twists and turns, like in a longer movie where it then is explained, or there's there's more pathos, and I'm like, but you don't have that luxury here, and you did the thing really well, like that bigger movies have, and it looks really well. But I was like, it has no resonance because I don't know what the fuck is going on.
I don't.
We were like, did we miss something?
Yeah.
Well, it's like as they were getting higher. I mean, it's called Altitude, so I would assume it has to.
You're getting higher.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but like actually getting high.
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
Yeah, like the oxygen levels are playing tricks on their brains.
Absolutely.
But I don't feel like that's expressed in the show
at all.
No,
it's not.
Yeah.
Wait, and it also has subtitles, right?
Which I was like, what? I didn't know I was signed up for this. I gotta read.
I loved that. I mean, there's so many times where I'll, like growing up, like watching, you were talking about the Japanese Grudge and stuff. Like we watch Ringu. And like I brought a bunch of my friends over and like, we're watching a horror movie. Put it in. And they're like, oh, interesting. And then subtitles hit and they're like, fuck you. Like, I didn't come here to read.
No.
Yeah.
I just came here to be entertained. I don't have to like
pay attention.
Yeah. Oh, you want to be entertained? I spit on your grave. No.
No.
Oh.
That's another hard pass, I think. Yeah.
You tried. We appreciate that.
I would never subject, unless you want to do a watch along of that. I would pay money to watch you two just be like.
Oh, I'd be so fucking angry. Oh man.
Oh, yeah. It would do what it's supposed to do, though. I guarantee it.
Invoke emotion.
Yeah.
Not the good kind.
A whole different rage of Stephanie you guys have never experienced. Start throwing
more
shit.
Wine. For charity.
Well, Ricky, thank you so much for chatting with us. We had so much fun with you.
Thank you so much for having me on.